Joseph Smith was a controversial religious leader who founded the modern-day Church of Latter-day Saints. Not only is he disliked for believing in polygamy to get to heaven, but historians are now calling into question the legitimacy of Joseph as a prophet. This brings the question whether he was just a misunderstood missionary or a truly devious manipulator. Joseph in adolescence. Joseph Smith Jr. was born on December 23, 1805 to Lucy and Joseph Smith, who were unwealthy and irreligious in Sharon, Vermont. Before Joseph was 5, his family had moved 3 times. When the Smiths moved to Lebanon, New Hampshire, however, things started to look up when they were able to rent a house right by the river. That is until an infection developed on Joseph's leg and knee in 1831. The doctor had to chisel out a piece of bone below his knee, and Joseph would not allow himself to be tied to the bed or sip whiskey to ease the pain. After this show of bravery and suffering, it led Joseph to be his mother's favorite child, and people expected remarkable things out of him. While Joseph Smith grew into adulthood, he was living in the time of the Second Great Awakening, a time where prophets were springing up left and right. This brings forth the question of whether Joseph Smith was bred into being a prophet considering the time or was simply answering a call from God. When Joseph was 14, he had his first vision when he went into the woods to pray. In later years, these visions, are more likely a dream, would be exaggerated. The book No Man Knows My History states that Joseph's reputation before he organized the church was not that of an adolescent mystic brooding over visions, but a likable ne'er-do-weller who spent his leisure leading a band of idlers digging for buried treasure. This hobby would lead Joseph to his first of many run-ins with the police. On one of his troves, he met Emma Hale, whom he immediately fell in love with. The two were secretly married on January 18, 1827, at the home of Squire Tarbell. In the next 5 years of Joseph's life, he would leave the world of treasure hunting and enter the world of religion. The beginnings of a church. Western New York and Ohio were home to large, strange mounds built by Indians that piqued the interest of Joseph Smith. Joseph claims that he found golden plates, also known to be the infamous Golden Bible, on September 21, 1827. These plates were transcribed by Joseph using a crystal as a translator. However, the basis of what would later become the Book of Mormon, which was published in 1830, is an unlikely story at best, because many even doubt the plates existed in the first place. Joseph himself said, "To my surprise, they were credulous enough to believe what I said." The plates not existing, though, also contradicts itself later, when the plates were seen by the 8 witnesses, so we cannot be certain as to whether the plates are a true, tangible artifact. The Book of Mormon brought Joseph into religious infamy, but he was responsible for keeping himself there. No Man Knows My History states that the Church of Christ was formally established on Tuesday, April 6, 1830, with 6 members. Within a month, the number had jumped to 40. But Joseph also faced many people who thought he was a fraud, and an angry mob even tarred and feathered him. After this, Joseph had a revelation about Zion, a heaven on earth. So in January of 1831, he and his followers headed west and settled in Kirkland, Ohio. Crowds began to overflow into the city, especially after Joseph performed a miracle on a paralyzed woman's arm. Since Joseph lived in poverty most of his life, he was quick to assist the poor of his church and started an autocratic government within the church. Later in 1838, which was Missouri's election year, the Mormons had decided to vote. This caused much controversy throughout the West, and an angry mob even attacked Mormons at the polls. So in retaliation, No Man Knows My History states that Joseph gave a speech, and at the end, the anger he had been hiding burst forth when he cried, "We will preach the gospel in peace. But if they come on us to molest us, we will establish our religion by the sword." This began a long string of violence between the Missourians and the Mormons, where they had a war with one another simply because the people of Missouri did not want Mormons living in their state. In 1839, Joseph had to leave Missouri and go into hiding on the ridiculous charge of treason, which he was later acquitted. After this, he established a town in the Iowa hills he named Nauvoo, which means beautiful plantation in Hebrew. While the town was booming, Joseph began trying to find a biblical explanation to make polygamy acceptable, even though he had not consulted his own wife, Emma. On April 5, 1841, plural marriage was finally inaugurated after Joseph had someone write a pamphlet in the Nauvoo newspaper defending polygamy. No one can know for certain how many wives Joseph truly had, but a list in No Man Knows My History provides a chart that shows he was married to 49 women for eternity, this being the main reason Joseph remains controversial today. In the spring of 1844, it seemed to the average person that Joseph Smith was doing better than ever, but of course this was not the case. After Joseph burned the town newspaper, the Nauvoo Expositor, There was public outrage and a warrant was issued for his arrest. After fleeing Illinois, Joseph decided to willingly surrender and went to the county jail in Carthage. On June 27, 1844, while he was waiting in jail, an angry mob attacked the Carthage jail. Joseph tried to escape out of the second-story window, but when he fell to the ground, he was shot 3 times and beheaded. After death. The Mormons now see Joseph Smith as a martyr who was murdered for his religious beliefs. Joseph is still relevant in the 21st century, and he has made a lasting impact on the world of religion, considering over 16 million people consider themselves Mormon as of 2022. So, to close, Joseph Smith was a controversial figure, some say rightfully so, but will we ever truly know his intentions? As in the words of Joseph Smith, "You don't know me, you never know my heart." He says, "No man knows my history. I cannot tell it. I shall never undertake it. I don't blame anyone for not believing my history. If I had not experienced what I have, I could not have believed it myself."